In this episode, I provide a free counseling session to a couple named Christy and Ben, and they talk about their financial struggles, and then I give them some solutions. Welcome to the Dr. Wyatt Show, where developing a long-lasting, happy relationship is the status symbol to achieve, and following my tools is one path to help get you there. I'm your host, Dr. Wyatt Fisher, a licensed psychologist specializing in couples counseling. If you want to improve your communication so that you have more love and less fights, download my app today, Keep the Glow, KTG, wherever you get your apps. Also, be sure to click subscribe for future episodes and follow me on social at Dr. Wyatt Fisher. So today I provided a free counseling session to a couple named Christy and Ben, and they talk about their problem in communication, but then it morphed into their problem with money, their problem with finances. And we talk about the wife, Christy, and her history with money and how that's influencing her current behavior and all the debt they have and how stressed out they are because of that debt. And make sure you listen all the way through to the end of the session so you can find the solutions we talked about, because they might also benefit you. If you'd like for me to give you a free counseling session, be sure to email me, info@drwyattfisher.com. But yeah, let's go ahead and kick it off. So tell me a little bit about where you guys are from and the history of your relationship.
Go ahead. Yeah, knock yourself out.
So we are in Cedar City, Utah, so southern Utah, right by Zion National Park. We've been married 15 years, and it's a second marriage for both of us.
Okay.
I don't know. What else do you want to know?
Yeah. Let's see. How did you guys hear about my podcast, the Dr. Wyatt Show?
I get your emails.
Okay.
And so, it said, hey, do you want a free session? It might be recorded or whatever. And Ben's like, sure, whatever.
Like, bring it on. You're ready. Okay. Awesome. Well, good. All right. Well, let's jump into it. What do you guys want my help with today for our session?
You're up for that one.
Me? Well, when we filled out the form, I figured communication's probably our biggest weak link.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me more. When someone says the word communication, it can mean so many different things to different people. How are you, Ben, when you say that, how are you defining communication?
We communicate pretty good, except for on a hard topic level, I would guess. I would say it's more hard topics, whether it be our relationship, money, kids, some things like that. So hard topics of communication is probably our hardest spot.
Mm-hmm. And what happens when you guys try to communicate on hard topics?
I would say we both get defensive pretty quick, wouldn't you say? We're both more, aggressive, defensive, kind of in that area. So if we want a good fight, that's where we go down. So.
Okay. What about you, Christy? What's your take on that?
He's right. I tend to shut down. I think, I don't really want to deal with that. So let's just don't deal with it. So I kind of shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I don't know the right word, but I come across strong, I guess. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to hurt his feelings. So I just don't say anything.
Okay. And what makes these topics hard for you guys?
Maybe that we're just different, because really most things we get along, we are on the same page. So it's probably when we come across something that we have a difference of opinion on.
Yeah. Okay. Would you agree with that, Ben?
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So these topics become hard topics for your marriage because we don't see eye to eye.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little more, like, how do you guys tend to approach these topics, and then what happens during the course of those conversations?
I think with me, I don't know, I sometimes tend to let it build until I'm frustrated. And then instead of coming out as, we need to discuss X, it's like, okay, this is what's wrong with X, Y, Z, ABC. So
Okay.
it all comes out all at once. And then Ben's like, well, I can fix one thing at a time, but not 50.
Uh-huh. So you have kind of these disgruntlements or frustrations on these topics that you're not expressing, and they build up, and then it all comes out.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Ben?
I don't know, how do I do it? I'm practically perfect, so this is more about her. Um, I probably let a lot of things go that maybe I shouldn't.
Okay.
Um, just because I don't know, I probably weigh the options and think, this isn't worth the fight. So whatever, I'll let you win.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like these hot topic areas you guys don't see eye to eye. So day to day, you probably notice your partner showing up or behaving in a way in that topic you don't care for or you don't like, but then you don't say anything, and then it builds up, and then you either avoid it or eventually it turns into a fight. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Ben?
I would agree.
Okay. So there's kind of two ways we can handle situations like that. The one way is learning a tool on how do we get out stuff daily that's bothering us so it doesn't build up. The other strategy is how do we have those conversations in a way where, we're operating as a team and we're developing some solutions that are going to work for both of us on those hard topics. Which of those two categories do you guys want to start with?
Go ahead.
I think the second one.
The second one. Okay. Yeah, and definitely if we have time, I think it'd be nice to get to both if we can, because they go hand in hand, right? Because
Right.
you don't want stuff to build up and then you blow up or you avoid. But then having that conversation, obviously, that's a skill set also. So they go hand in hand. So if we start with the second one, which is how to have those conversations, uh, one thing that I encourage couples to have, I'm not sure how much you've heard me talk about this, but is a once a week marriage huddle. And in that marriage huddle, you address several things. One thing you address is our schedules, just to make sure we're synced up on our schedules. Second thing is we talk about our concerns. And the concerns are these hot topics, right? So let's say kids, for example. Let's say one of you has a concern with your 19-year-old, and you're like, hey, I think, they need to do this different or this different. I have a concern in that. And now when am I going to talk about it with my partner? When can I bring it up? This marriage huddle once a week becomes a safe place to bring up concerns. Okay. Or let's say another hot topic is money, and you're having a concern because you guys aren't saving enough, or maybe you're saving too much. When do I bring that up? You can bring it up during this once a week marriage huddle. Now, these topics, by the way, just to tease it out, these are topics you bring it up and you have a concern, but it's not against your partner. If you feel like your partner is doing something wrong and you're frustrated with your partner on one of these topics, that's also something you can do in the marriage huddle. Because the third thing you should do in the marriage huddle is ask your partner if they have any resentments toward you. Like, hey, do you have any resentments toward me? Anything we need to clear the air on? And you may say, yes, I do. And it's on the topic of parenting, right? Or it's on the topic of finances or whatever. But that's if you think they're doing something wrong and you're frustrated with them. Okay. So you have to kind of think about it in your head when you're having your marriage huddle. Okay, I have concern in parenting. Is this against my partner? Are they doing something wrong? Or is it just something I want to brainstorm with them on because I have a concern? Okay.
Right.
For you guys with these hard topics, is it usually something against your partner, or is it just a concern that you want to collaborate with your partner on this hard topic?
I'd say both.
Well, yeah, but I would say the majority though is the concern over the partner.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Because then the fourth thing that you're supposed to do in this huddle is the love buckets. And the love buckets are a comprehensive tool where you're basically checking in on how well you've filled up each other's love buckets versus draining your partner's love buckets. And so if it is a pattern of like, yeah, I really don't like how my partner parents, and because they're too permissive or they're too strict, then that becomes a drainer on the love buckets that you check in with during this marriage huddle as well. So those are the four things in the huddle. It's let's coordinate our schedules. Let's talk through any concerns that have nothing to do with each other, but it's just concerns in our life together. Let's make sure there's no resentments. Let's clear the air. If there are, we use the reunite tool. That's a separate tool. And then finally, let's do the love buckets, because the love buckets is going to open up our communication and make sure there's nothing in the corners. Okay. So let's imagine it's just a concern though. Okay. And tell me again, what's one of your hard topics?
Money.
Okay. So that is one. Yeah. Yeah. So what you would do during the huddle is you say, hey, I do have a concern I want to talk about with our money, regarding whatever it is. You fill in the blank. So what's an example of a hard topic with money? Like something that you guys have wrestled with.
Probably making sure we are out of debt and stay out of debt.
Okay. And do you guys land differently on the value of paying off debt versus it's okay if we have debt? Or are you aligned in that?
I think we're aligned. I think our methods of getting there are different.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, the most problems happen when one partner is against all debt and they're married to someone who's comfortable with high levels of debt. So that obviously would create a lot of friction between the partners. Yeah. Yeah. So in that situation, so whoever has the concern, but you just bring it up like, hey, can we talk about our strategy or our plan with paying off debt? Because I just feel concerned with our progress, or I feel concerned with a lack of a plan, or whatever your concern is. So let's say this is where sharing power starts coming in. So first of all, just talking about it might be all you need to do. If you're already aligned on it, you might just need to brainstorm like, yeah, what should we do? Do we need is this an income problem? Do we need to increase our income, or do we have a spending problem? Or do we just have a lack of focus problem? Or is it all three? Like, who knows? Like, right, we just need to talk it out to get on the same page because we both value paying off the debt. So we just need a concrete plan on how we're going to get there faster. And so you have to go through like, do we need to earn more income to put through that debt? Or do we need to tighten our belt because we're too loose with what we spend? Maybe we need to set a budget and really stick with it. Or do we need a concrete plan? You know, how are we going to do this? How are we going to actually pay off the debt? So when it comes to debt payoff, usually it's one of those three things that couples need to clarify or focus on, or sometimes it's all three. But that's where then you start brainstorming and you're just kind of knocking around ideas and you're just flushing it out until you feel like we have a plan.
Mhm.
When you hear me say that, which of those three do you feel like the focus would be that you guys need to talk about more?
Needs, wants, and budgets.
Yeah. So the second one, I don't know how you put it, but it was the second one.
Okay, the second one is spending too much.
Yes.
Probably.
That we're
Okay,
too loose with our, yes, we just,
Yes.
yes.
okay. And do you guys equally spend like loosely, or one of you more than the other?
I'm more than he is.
Okay, that's good ownership. Okay, so you tend to
Yeah, I'll
spend.
tell you.
Okay, so you're more the spender than Ben is.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And so you recognize that you want to improve on that, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what is the pitfall? Like what creates the extra spending? And what have you already tried around that to improve it? And what's the history there?
The biggest thing I think is because I can't somehow, for some reason, I don't know why, I can't wrap my head around a budget. So he talks budget and I just get mad
Okay.
because I'm
Yeah.
like, if I have a bill, I got to pay it. It doesn't matter if it's $50 or 500, I got to pay it. So
Okay.
it's just, I think it's a mental block.
Yeah. 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 What was your relationship with money, or your family's relationship with money growing up? How was money treated, talked about, approached?
You know what? I grew up really poor. I
Mm,
mean, my mom, we took $100 to the grocery store, and when that money was gone, it was gone. It didn't matter if you filled your list or not.
okay.
Um, so I know my mom budgeted, but like she never sat us down and showed us how or told us how, or
Yes, she did.
no, she didn't.
Oh, I know. I know they have. We've talked about them, I
Okay.
think, before.
So to me, I just, you got bills, you got to pay them. Doesn't matter, just pay them.
So let me just make sure I'm understanding. So growing up, things were tight. You guys were poor. So it sounds like if you had a certain amount of money, and when that money was gone, the money was gone, whether you got all the groceries or not.
Yes.
Yeah. And is that similar to your approach, or are you approaching it the opposite, which is, I don't care if we have the money or not, this is a need.
Yes.
So you're kind of gone the other extreme from how you were raised. Is
I,
that right?
I think so. Yes.
That makes sense. So
It's
growing up, you felt, what do you say?
I said, this is kind of embarrassing.
Oh, is that the first time you've thought that or
Yes.
realized that? Ah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, we're all raised in a family with a different relationship with money. And
Right.
sometimes money is a source of scarcity. Sometimes it's a source of power. Sometimes a source of pleasure. Sometimes there's stress a lot with money. Sometimes there's peace. So it all varies. But what it sounds like you're saying is there was never enough money, and we always went without, or there wasn't enough to pay the bill or to get that loaf of bread, no matter if we needed it. And so now I want to make sure I do whatever I need to do, whether we have the money or not, because I hated that experience growing up. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. What's it like to see that connection for you?
It's interesting, kind of. I don't know. It's like this wake up call. I don't. I know that
Yeah,
sounds weird,
no, no.
but it
Yeah, I
really is.
mean,
It's like, oh, okay. But I don't ever remember feeling, like, I mean, that we didn't necessarily go without. It was just we didn't have it, so you didn't have it. I don't know that I knew any different, if that makes sense. But
for sure.
I can see that, even with things I do for my kids, with regard to like buying clothes and different things. And sometimes I feel like maybe I am overcompensating for what I lacked as a child.
Yeah. Well, definitely would make sense why you don't like the idea of a budget, because a budget would say, doesn't matter if we have the money or not. If it's not in the budget, we're not spending it. And that's how you were raised and you hated it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes just having that insight can make a big difference because then you can realize, like, wait a minute, am I overcompensating? Right? Am I kind of going too far? Because most of us either replicate our upbringing or we do the opposite of it. But often we're not even aware what we're doing. And you can't change something until you become aware of it and understand the origins. So sometimes just connecting those dots makes a big impact. What is it like for you, or what when you think about that connection? What changes would that make you want to make, if any, with how you react or interact with money today?
Oh, it makes me kind of want to reevaluate.
Does it?
Yes. Look at yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things that yeah, because I can justify pretty much anything that, oh well, we needed that. But then, as you're talking, I'm looking around thinking, okay, but do we really need it?
Yeah. 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 I mean, you came from a scarcity climate, it sounds like. And so you want to make sure you never feel like it's scarcity again, is how it
Yeah.
sounds.
Yeah.
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 There's a story of my wife's grandfather during World War II, and he like starved for a while, like there wasn't enough like supplies and food. And then after World War II, he gained a ton of weight because he wanted to make sure he always had plenty of food in the fridge, so he overate to
Mhm.
always make sure he was satiated because he hated that experience of starving. So it kind of feels like something like that, right? Like you were kind of starved almost. You may not think of it that way, but now as an adult, you're like, I want to make sure I never feel starved financially again.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So sometimes, the takeaway can be, okay, I'm realizing where this comes from. And hopefully, the more I think about it, I'm realizing I'm overcompensating. And so, what would it look like to strike a balance? Because, yes, I don't want to go back to feeling scarcity, but that doesn't mean I need to overcompensate either, because then that's harming our family, right? Because if my goal, if I do believe in getting out of debt, that doesn't line up with me overcompensating with spending. And so I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot and not just hurting me, but I'm hurting us. Like this is hurting our family here because when we can't get out of the hole financially and all of our money is going to paying off the debt, how does that leave us financially? That leaves us feeling like we have scarcity probably.
Yes, yes.
So it's interesting from that angle also, right? Like the very
Right.
thing I'm trying to overcompensate for is actually creating the very feeling that I'm trying to overcompensate for.
Yeah, yep.
Is that right? Would you edit any of that?
No,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Ben, what about for you listening to this? What are your thoughts going through your head?
That you hit the nail right on the head. No,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Had you thought this already, Ben, or is this the first time you're making those connections with her also?
oh, I've thought some of this before. I don't necessarily think I related it back to how she was as a kid, but but yeah, some of it's new, some of it's I've kind of assumed. She's
Yeah.
kind of assumed some of it too in different ways, but
Yeah. 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 So that's a huge first step, right? Is just recognizing, whoa, like I'm kind of spinning in circles. The very emotion I'm trying to escape, I'm actually creating.
Yeah,
And so,
yep.
so if I want to feel financially free, the best thing I can do is figure out a way to not overspend so we can get out of debt so that we can have freedom instead of anxiety and scarcity around money.
Yeah, yeah.
Because how does the debt impact you guys financially? What does it make you feel? How does it impact your family?
I don't know that. I mean, like, I don't think the kids know. I mean, but I mean, it's feelings of anxiety.
Yeah, that's common. What makes you the most anxious around the debt?
me just the thought of great. Now I got to pay that off. More than anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's the main source of your spending? Like what's hardest for you to cut back on, would you say, if you think about all these categories of our life and bills we have, what I spend money on, what would be hardest for you to reduce?
Well, I know.
You're gonna say clothes,
Definitely clothes, shoes,
shoes.
and probably eating out.
Yes, we need to be better at that.
Yeah. Okay. And Ben, are you more disciplined on average? Like, oh, we don't have the money, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, it's lots easier for me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty tight, I think, most of the time. I
Uh-huh.
can justify spending money, but a lot of times it's more if I buy something that's going to make me money.
Okay.
It's more, I'm pretty liberal that way.
Yeah,
Like if
yeah.
there's a new tool or something that costs me $2,000, I can justify that pretty easy
Okay.
if it makes my life easier.
Yeah, yeah. And do you guys get consent with each other before spending over a certain amount of money, or how do you handle that?
Um, I don't know. I usually talk to you
Yeah.
before I buy something, but
See, but I don't spend a lot of money all at once. It's a little that adds up to a lot.
Okay. Yeah. And are you using a debit card or cash or a credit card on average?
Credit card.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So credit
Embarrassing.
cards, yeah, that's
Well,
okay. I mean, you're American, right? That's really
Well,
normal.
I guess.
Yeah, that's why credit card companies love us.
Right?
And you may or may not know, but people who use credit cards tend to spend on average 50% more than they would spend if they were using cash because you don't see the impact.
yep.
And the majority of people who use credit cards do not pay them off at the end of the month. And so that's the whole trap, right? It's some people do, but it's rare. It's something like majority of people who own credit cards do not pay them off at the end of the month. And that's what credit cards, they try to entice you like, oh, get this introductory rate or get these miles or get this perk. And then we sign up for them thinking we're going to pay this off every month. And then we can't. We have a tight month. And now, before you know it, that debt is building and building and building.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So your guys' sources of debt. So it sounds like you have credit card debt.
Hmm.
Yeah. What other are the big forms of debt you guys have?
Then we have, well, our house and a car.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. How much debt do you have on your car still?
50-ish thousand probably.
Yeah, it's a brand new car.
Oh, wow. So lots of money. Uh-huh.
Well, how
Yeah.
much did we put down?
25 or something.
Yeah, so we put on 30,
30.
30-ish.
You have 30 on it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
roughly.
Okay. So if you add up all your debt, how much debt do you guys have total? Not including
Houses, everything.
your house.
Um,
100,000
100,
probably.
yeah.
So is that just 30,000 car loans and the rest is credit card?
Probably.
Wow. So you have a lot of credit card debt. So around 70,000.
Yeah, probably.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. So the amount of payments you're making on all of your credit cards and your car loan, that's a lot of money going out the door just to pay off your debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No wonder we're stressed.
Yeah, that's stressful for everybody. I mean, there's something about debt that just hangs over your head. Um, how often do you guys talk about these numbers? Like how much you actually have debt, where the debt is from, or is this new?
Once in a while, but not like we should, not weekly, like you said.
Okay. Yeah. Money is one of those things where it's easy to kind of forget about it. And even if and it's easy to try to forget about it, especially when you don't like what the numbers are going to say. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's a couple ideas on the debt side. You can take it or leave it. You may think these are terrible ideas. Um, and these are inspired from Dave Ramsey. Do you guys listen to Dave Ramsey at all?
oh, I have.
Yeah, so he's a little controversial with some of his stances and views, but his financial steps, he has these steps that he recommends. They're very powerful if you follow them. And so if you want to learn more, obviously you can check him out. He has a lot of resources. But basically, these are inspired from his guidelines. Well, let me ask you guys this. Do you have an emergency fund and liquid
Yeah,
cash anywhere?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's impressive. Do you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses in that emergency fund?
probably.
Close. Yeah.
If we needed
Okay.
to be tight, we could do it.
Okay. Yep. So this is what he recommends. And again, you can take it or leave it. So what he would say to a couple in your situation, he would say, stop all investing in retirement. Are you guys currently putting any money away in retirement?
A lot.
Okay. So he would say, push pause on that. Then he would say, take all of your emergency fund except for $1,000, and you're going to put that toward your debts. You're going to add up that 100,000 in debt you have, and whatever the lowest payment is first, you would pay that one off first. It's called the snowball, where you list all your debts from smallest to largest, and you take all of your emergency fund except for that 1,000, and you're going to put it all toward your debt. Paying off the smallest to the largest. And the reason that's recommended is to build up your momentum. Like, oh, wow, we just paid off that $500 credit card. Now we're going to take the payment we were putting toward that, put it on the next one, and let's get that one paid off. Okay, now we're going to take the payments we were just making on those two, and we're going to put that on the third one. And you keep doing that to pay down all your debt. He also would recommend get rid of the car. He would say, sell that sucker, get out from under that debt and buy something in cash while you're paying off your other debt. So he also would recommend that. So now we're just talking about 70,000 in debt and credit cards, and however much your emergency fund is. Let's say you have 30,000 in your emergency fund, you put that, toward your debt. So now we're just talking about like 40,000 in debt with your credit cards. And then the next step is we need to tackle that remaining 40,000. We got to set up a budget and follow that budget and be gazelle intense is what he calls it. So in that phase, we got to tighten our belts. We have to earn extra money, like side hustles if we can. so that we can take all that extra money and dump it right on that 40,000 to burn through that as fast as possible. Hopefully, depending on your income, depending on side hustles, depending on setting up a budget and sticking with it and tightening your belts. I mean, let me ask you, how long do you think it would take to pay off if you did all these steps, right? You can reject all this. If you did all those steps and you just had 40,000 left to pay off, give or take, how long do you think it would take to pay off that debt if you added side hustles and tightened your belt with what you're spending?
I think if we just didn't spend once, like if we didn't spend any money on once,
On once.
on things that we want,
Oh, once.
like trips, things like that, I think we could pay it off with just a budget in 4 months.
Whoa, that's impressive. You guys must have.
Probably.
I think if we just buckled
Okay.
down and worked for 4 months, we could pay it off.
Wow. So how long would it take you to pay off 100,000 then?
6, 7
6,
months, maybe.
7 months,
Well, if that's the case, that may change the equation.
4
'Cause that-
months. I mean, if we buckled down and did the things that we're currently working on, I have a construction company and we're doing some things. I mean, if we buckled down and finished some of our projects, like a house we're going to sell, then it's just done, and it could be done within 2 months, realistically.
Okay.
So it's just
Wow.
a matter of buckling down. I mean, I think a budget would be awesome, because then I think accountability. I mean, I've tried to start tracking what we just are spending a million times. And I think if we just tracked everything we've spent and we're accountable, 100% accountable for it,
Yeah.
that I think we would have, I don't know, at least $1,000, $1,500 extra every single month that we just spend, like on eating out and
Yeah, because we
just
don't think
stupid
about it.
crap at $20 here, $50 there. I guarantee we spend at least $1,500 a month on stupid crap. So I think being accountable for what we do spend would go a long ways.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge first step. So being able to pay such a large chunk in a short time, that's because you guys would sell off something. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We have a house that we used to rent it, but it's in pretty bad shape, so we've been remodeling. So if we were to finish it, then we would have nothing.
Wow. So what impact would that have for you guys to have zero debt?
Well,
we'd be rich. No,
I wouldn't be rich, but
You'd probably feel rich compared to how you
it
feel
would
now.
feel that way. Yes.
Yes.
what would scare me is how fast that money would probably go. And that's what, I don't know, I think it's been a hindrance to me on finishing it, to be honest. I think, okay, if I do that, how long until we're in the same boat that we are in? Because we just don't have anything set up in place that we are accountable or a budget or anything like that. And we've talked about this before, and that's a huge fear to me, because we've been debt free, I don't know, in 15 years many times. And we slowly will get ourselves back into a hole regardless.
Yeah.
Because we're not accountable for what we spend.
Yeah. Yeah. Some things can help mitigate that, because I hear you. You're saying like, hey, I'm kind of worried to put money on this debt because we've been here before. We've paid it off and we just rack it right back up, and it's such a waste. So I don't want to necessarily put money on paying down the debt when we're just going to replicate it again.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple of things that can help with that. One is this new insight, right? Of recognizing like, man, we want freedom. I'm trying to escape fear or scarcity, but I'm actually creating scarcity because now we have all this debt. And so having like an awakening or a new aha moment of like, wait a minute, like I want freedom now and I'm creating scarcity, right? That whole connection that we talked about. So that can be one factor that can help give people some hope. Like we got to start doing this different, because we can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. If we want freedom, We have to change things up because we're just creating scarcity, which is the very thing I'm trying to escape. So sometimes that insight and that connection can help. Another thing that can help, I'll list off a couple things. Another one is I encourage couples to have a policy in their marriage of no debt except for their home, where moving forward, we're not going to allow any credit, any charging, because it's a slippery slope, right? We start charging, we think we're going to pay it off, and the slippery slope is credit cards, right? Because if you have a debit card, you can't overcharge because you have to have that money in the bank. So that's a much safer route. So what a lot of couples do in your situation is they get rid of all their credit cards. They chop them up. You get out scissors and they just it's kind of painful, but you chop through your credit cards and you have this agreement like we are not going to use credit ever again, apart from homes. Not for cars, not for student loans, not for credit cards, nothing. Like if we don't have the cash, we're not doing it. And that's countercultural, right? Like no one does that. But if you do
Right.
that, if you do that and you buy into it, it changes everything. Because now all of a sudden it's not, oh, I want it. Now it's, do we have the money for it? And now I got to check and see if we have the money. And I have to talk to my partner and we have to share power to see if we should spend money on this. When credit is an option, there's no accountability. It's like, I want it, I'm going to charge it. And I don't even have to talk to my partner about it. I'm just going to do it. It's very, very tempting. And that's why the majority of Americans are in a lot of debt because of credit cards. And so that's an option for you guys is just have this agreement. We are not going to use credit moving forward. Like once we get this debt cleared up, that's one change. If we agree to this, and maybe you need to like write it out on a piece of paper and both sign off on it and put it on your fridge. So it's like a document. Like we're agreeing moving forward to not use credit for anything beyond a home so that we don't get ourselves back in this same situation we're in right now. And it's painful, right? And there's going to be moments where you're like, oh, it'd be so tempting to use a credit card right here. But that's what your 3 to 6 months of living expense, your emergency fund is for, right? Because what happened, I mean, it's great you guys have that because a lot of people don't have that. And then they go through an emergency and they whip out the credit card and now they're adding debt on top of the emergency, right? The crisis.
Right.
And so you want that emergency fund there 3 to 6 months of your living expenses so that when you go through a crisis, it's a matter of, when, not if, we pay for that in cash. That's what that's for. So we don't use credit. What would it be like for you guys to adopt this idea of no more credit? Like, what's your reaction or thoughts hearing me talk about that?
It's scary.
It doesn't bother
It
me.
is scary. What'd you say, Ben?
I say it doesn't bother me.
Okay. Yeah, Chrissy, what's scary for you about that?
I don't know. I think
Instant gratification.
that's probably true. Instant gratification that I would have to think twice before I just bought it. Sometimes I think, yeah, I'm probably impulsive.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, we need, whatever it might be when we really probably don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, right? It can feel scary because credit cards can become a source of security. Like whenever I want something, I can get it because I have a lot
Yeah.
of credit cards. I just pull out a different one. And then you get conditioned to this instant gratification and there's no delayed gratification. So it's easy to get comfortable with that kind of lifestyle. So the idea of not having that can feel like panicky for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But the antidote is remembering this is the path to peace. If we keep going down this path of charging and charging, I'm going to feel just like I did growing up, which is the very thing I'm trying to get away from. The goal is we need to have a strong cash base, right? So once we get out of this debt and we rebuild our emergency fund, we're going to have a large cash base. And then we can, set up, we can readjust the budget at that point and make it comfortable. So once we've paid off all of our debt and we have our 3 to 6 living expenses of months of living expenses, we can expand our budget so it feels comfortable, right? And then it's a cash-based system. So let's say you say, okay, let's spend $200 a week for groceries. Then like, okay, that's how much we have in cash. Or let's say you pull out, 120 bucks a week for spending money. You have that cash, then when this is gone, it's gone. But it's 120 bucks. Like I can spend that however I want. Or you guys can agree on whatever number, right? Maybe you say, let's get out 200 a week for each of us, and we spend that however we want to. And then you have that 200 bucks in your pocket all week long. And you're thinking, that's my mad money. I can save it, I can blow it, I can whatever I want to do, right? And so that eventually that kind of existence can feel free and it can feel secure because you have cash in the bank, you have that secure, you have the emergency fund, and you have cash in your pocket. So it is a different way to live, but once you adapt it, I think it can feel much less stressful, much more free than what you're currently feeling, which is stress and anxiety.
Right, right.
What do you think? Hearing me describe that, what does that sound like to you guys?
What's it sound like to you?
Well, I get it. Like, I mean, what you're saying is resonating with me.
Is it? Okay.
This is not this is not at all how I thought this whole session would go. So
Yeah.
I'm a little bit, I guess, shocked. So, kind of
Sure.
the turn it's taken or whatever.
We're supposed to be on communication.
Yeah, this is about communication. So, but everything you're saying, it's resonating. I mean, I'm writing notes as you're talking, and so yeah. And then I'm thinking, okay, we need to talk about this and this and this. As soon as we're done here, then we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's resonating with you the most, Christy?
When you said it's a path to peace, because I told you I've got this anxiety, and you're saying you're creating exactly what you're trying to avoid. And so yeah, that's you're saying exactly how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And I appreciate you being open and owning, right, your contribution to this, because a lot of people will get defensive and they're like, I don't have an issue. And then that creates a marital problem, but you're very humble and teachable to say like, yeah, it's me. I tend to overspend. And so that's great. You're being so teachable. At
Well,
least in front of me, you are at least.
well, no, but I mean, really, I watched Dr. Phil a lot back when in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
He always said you can't change what you don't acknowledge.
True.
And that's been that's always huge to me, that if you don't acknowledge something, how are you going to change it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So those are some options, guys. So if you want to experience peace, financial peace, and by the way, that's going to improve your marriage, because when you have this yeah. What'd you say, Ben?
I said that's the name of Dave Ramsey's books, Financial Peace.
Well, that's his course. And I think, yep, he does have a book on that. His main book is Total Money Makeover. Total Money Makeover. If you read through that, you'll read through his steps. He has like 7 steps. And it's really great. It's a really great book. But that's the path to peace, right? Is to have that freedom, to have flexibility financially. Like I want to feel that, that we don't have to worry about money, that we don't have strain and stress. What I'm describing can be painful. It can be difficult, but once you get to the other side and it becomes your normal, it changes how you feel. And that's what we're after, right? We want to have this positive. And just to share a little bit, my wife and I used to be in a very similar boat as you guys. We had credit cards and we had the same pattern, right? We would rack up all the debt and then we'd pay it off and we'd vow we're never going to do that again. And then we would do it again. Like we went through that multiple times. And finally, we got to the point where I was like, we're chopping up our credit cards. This is a problem. We obviously can't control ourselves. I keep turning to credit cards and because we're not saving up. And so I literally took our credit cards and I took scissors and I chopped through them, even though we still owed money on them, but so that we couldn't keep using them. And my wife was on board, but it was a painful transition. And I can't tell you how many times moving forward after that point, I wanted to pull out a credit card to pay for something and we didn't have them. They weren't there. And slowly we paid off all that debt. And slowly we work toward a cash-based system where if we don't have cash for it, we don't pay for it. And I have to tell you, it's been the most profound pivot in our marriage financially, is getting rid of the credit cards and getting out of debt. And right now we're 100% debt free, except for our home. And it's created so much peace in our marriage because of it. And it's also encouraged us to have better communication and better partnership, because now everything's based on if we have the money or not. It's cash based. So that requires us to communicate more and share power on those financial decisions, because there's no spending in the left field and right field with those credit cards anymore. It's all coming out of our joint account, which we either have the cash for or we don't. And so it simplifies your decisions. It's either we have the money or we don't. So anyway, the reason I share that is I've been in your shoes and I know how it feels, and it can feel scary and anxiety inducing, but I also know what it feels like to get to the other side and have a cash-based system, and it's well worth it.
Right, right.
So just want to encourage you. Yeah. Yeah. What's that like to hear me share my story that I can relate?
There's, I don't know, a feeling maybe of hope. I don't know. Because really though, I mean, it's almost like overwhelming that
Yeah.
there's a lot, and how do you get out? And I mean, it's like this, constant pressure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, where you're saying, it's a pivotal point that all of a sudden you get over that and you get past that, and it gives me hope, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what you want to feel. Because when it comes to money, especially when you're buried in debt, it feels hopeless. And then you feel
Yes.
like, why even try? Like, it's such a huge mountain of debt. Like, I just feel like there's nothing's going to help.
Yes, yes. Why
Yeah.
even try? Yes, I do feel days of that.
Yeah. But those would be the options to consider, right? So you guys have a unique choice where you can either cash out this home and just like wipe out all the debt, but I would only do that if you guys are in agreement. This is going to be a new beginning, and we're chopping up all credit cards, and we're going to write a document where we are not going to open up any more credit, because you need some kind of change for Ben to feel comfortable even cashing out that home, right? And just in general, like, we don't want to get debt free and continue our same behaviors, or we're going to get right back there. And credit cards are the downside, in addition to having the mindset that it's okay to finance things.
Right, right.
Right. And everywhere we turn, it's, hey, buy now, pay later, interest
Yes,
free for 6 months. It's so enticing. And those advertisements are all over the place. But it's having this mindset of, if we don't have the cash, we're not going to do it. Right.
right.
So that's
Yep.
the value system. Yeah.
Yes.
So you guys have this unique situation where you could either don't worry about transferring the emergency fund over to pay off the debt, because we're going to cash out this home and that's going to wipe out everything. And we could even keep the car right now and cash out the home and pay off all the debt, including the car, and keep the emergency fund intact. What I would say maybe is, maybe you could set that up if you guys agree to this. Like, let's accomplish this within, say, 6 months, that plan. But worst case scenario, if that falls through or that doesn't work out, then maybe we should consider putting the emergency fund on the debt, getting rid of that car, getting a car in cash, and then hammering down that debt, and then rebuilding the emergency fund. And then we can save up and upgrade the car at that point. So you could approach it that way too, as like a backup in case this whole house thing doesn't work out or it falls through or whatever. Maybe give it a certain amount of time. If it doesn't work out, then you could try the other option if you wanted to.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we've covered a lot, so it's a lot to think
Yes,
about.
we have.
Yeah. Yeah, the time went quick also. What are some final thoughts or questions or anything you wanted to ask me or share?
Do you have any?
Well, I don't have any.
No, I'm just honestly just kind of surprised, like I said, about the turn it took.
Yes.
I do feel, I guess, hopeful.
That's
I
great.
feel like, I mean, you said we covered a lot, and I've got notes, and I was taking notes as you were talking and different things. And so there's hope. And we're going to do our marriage huddle.
Okay.
That was like
Yes.
my favorite thing.
Okay. Excellent. Yes. And I wrote an article on my website on finances and marriage, and it goes through all those steps, and I've added other steps to them that I think is helpful. And I'd be happy to send you guys that article if you'd like to just mull it over further.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. Okay, guys. Well, it was great to meet you both. Good to talk to you both. Thanks for doing this. I'm sure other couples can relate because you are not alone. I mean, this is such a common area for couples is finances. So feel free to send me an email if you have any more questions, but otherwise, hope you have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, you too.
Okay. You're welcome. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Dr. Wyatt Show. If you enjoyed the episode and you're on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment. If you're listening to the podcast, be sure to leave a review. I love to hear the reviews, see the comments, so we can keep this conversation going. And if you're ready to level up your marriage, join my Marriage Saver Society. Do you want to learn conflict resolution skills? Do you want to communicate better? Do you want closer emotional intimacy? Do you want to learn these skills from the comfort of your living room at your own pace? If you answered yes, join Marriage Saver Society, MSS. It's my leading digital course that will teach you all my tools, all my skills from the comfort of your living room. Go to my website to learn more, drwyattfisher.com, and click on MSS. And remember, your marriage is alive. If you care for it and nurture it, it will grow. But if you deprive it and neglect it, it will wilt and die. The choice is up to you. Take care.